Hey, this is Corey from Wolfpack Woodcraft, and we help you become a little more self-reliant in every video. Now, today we're going to be talking about cyber attacks. This is a concern that a lot of people have. This is not a concern that Caroline and I have, and I want to make a video explaining why it's not a concern to us. And in order to do that, we have to start from the very beginning. So, in 2020, when the whole world went crazy and everything shut down, it became very clear to me that there was a good chance that I would not be able to hire people to come and fix my home, right? I couldn't call a plumber, might not be able to come help, an electrician might not be able to come help, the internet provider might not be able to come and help. And so honestly, it scared me. And I have always focused on wilderness preparedness. Okay, my idea was that I was going to go out into the middle of the woods, and if I could be comfortable in the middle of the woods, I can always be comfortable, because the wilderness doesn't change. If you go back 100 years ago, the wilderness was exactly the same. A tree's a tree, a deer's a deer, a bear's a bear, a fire is fire. It's exactly the same 100 years ago as it is today. And it's going to be exactly the same 100 years from now as it is today. So if I can find comfort in the wilderness, I should always be able to find comfort. But when everything shut down and everything was locked down and no one was able to go anywhere or do anything, it became very clear to me that those skills didn't really come in handy. Okay? I wasn't able to, starting fire and cooking over an open fire didn't really pertain to the situation I was in, because those skills weren't helping fixing my plumbing. They weren't helping rewire my outlets and making my outlets work properly. They didn't help much at all. And I decided in 2020 that I was going to put wilderness prepping and wilderness survival on hold, and I was going to focus more on self-reliance, and I was going to focus on taking care of what I have here and making sure that I can take care of all of this. Instead of running away into the wilderness, I need to learn how to defend my castle and stay here where all my things are, right? All my stuff is here. Everything I need is here. I need to be able to provide for this home to the best of my ability. And that is what I've been doing for the last 2 years. From 2020 to 2022, right now it's 2022, I've been working on that. I've been working on learning how to plumb. I've been working on electrical. I've been working on different things. And one of the big topics was internet. And so when it comes to cybersecurity, it involves internet. An example would be, if you do not have a telephone, I cannot call you. If you do not have internet, no one can hack into your system. You have to have that line of communication. You have to have that telephone line to call someone. You have to have that internet line to hack in and cyberly attack something. And so if you just unplug your internet, there is no cyber attack. They cannot cyberly attack you if there is no internet connection. And one of the things that I've been preparing for is a world with no internet, because I can't fix that little black box, okay? That little plastic box that produces internet. If it stops producing internet, there's nothing I can do about that. When it comes to plumbing and electrical, I can rewire things. I can run a brand new wire from here to there. I can plumb things differently. I can figure out a system to alter what is happening when it comes to those things. I can't alter internet. It's either on or it is off, and I have zero control over it. And so what I found is I relied on the internet way too much. And I was not comfortable relying on something that could so easily disappear. And the other thing, in 2020, all these people were getting laid off, everybody was losing their jobs, and I was worried that if Caroline and I fell onto hard times, one of the very first, if not the first bill, the monthly bill that we would get rid of, is the internet. We have internet on our phones. We do not need to pay for internet. And so to live in a world without internet, I found to be way more difficult than I initially thought. And so keep that in mind, right? We're going to be talking about cyber attacks because that's what everybody seems to be panicking about. But it's more about living in a world without internet. How much do you truly rely on internet to do basically everything? Before I really thought about it, I did everything through the internet, everything. And without internet, I would have lost everything, and I have slowly built a world now where I can live without it. I don't need it, and so I want to show you how I made that possible. The very first thing that the internet provides is it provides a ton of information. A lot of people have Facebook, and a lot of the things that they need to remember, things that they go through their memories, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram has everything they need to know about themselves, right? Facebook even brings up memories of stuff from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you're like, oh, it's so nice. If Facebook goes away, because Facebook, internet, the Twitter, all social media, it's internet. If you lose internet, you lose all that information. You do not have access to it. It's not like it's saved on your phone or it's saved on your computer. It's saved on the internet. And if you do not have internet, you cannot access all that information. And I know people that their job information, like when they were hired and when they quit their job, like their whole resume is basically on Facebook. And if Facebook disappeared, they wouldn't remember those dates. They wouldn't remember that stuff. So you need to have paper, pencil, pens, colored pencils, pencil sharpeners. You need to be able to write all that stuff down. You need to have a physical document that you made that has that information on it. And not only do you have to have that stuff from past information, you're going to have future information as well. And you need to have a stockpile of paper and pens and pencils so that you can write down new information. 5 years from now, if you quit your job and get another one, write it down. You know what I mean? Keep a physical copy of that stuff. Don't rely on internet sources to do that for you, especially like LinkedIn. A lot of people have their work life, their work career, their resumes, everything on LinkedIn. If you don't have internet, there is no LinkedIn. You need to have a physical copy of that. So make sure you're writing all that information down. Next, you might want to have a calculator. Now I have a TI-84. I have the big calculator that I got in high school. I kept it. And so you don't need something like that. Honestly, would be a better situation would be a calculator, just one of those small calculators with a solar panel on it. Those solar calculators will probably be even better because then you don't have to worry about batteries. But the reason that I wrote that down is because a lot of people rely on their phones. Okay, so when it comes to my computer and my tablet and things like that, I can unhook them from Wi-Fi. I can put them in airplane mode. I can just completely, like my computer, I can unplug the Ethernet and there is no more internet going to that computer. When it comes to my tablet, I can turn off the Wi-Fi and no more connection can go to that tablet. When it comes to my cell phone is going through a cell phone provider, whether that's Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever that is. And even if you turn the Wi-Fi off, you still have 4G internet access, meaning it still can get hacked into. The information from your phone can still be extracted from it. And so it might be, in my personal opinion, if there was a chance of cyber attacks, I would turn my phone completely off. I would make sure that there was no signal to it whatsoever. No cell phone signal, no internet signal, no GPS signal. It would be off. And I would just let the battery die and I would turn it off and I wouldn't deal with it anymore. And I do a lot of things on my phone, and like the calculator. Every time I need a calculator, I pull out my smartphone. If I don't have access to a smartphone, I don't have access to a calculator. And when it comes to online banking, right? If there is no online, there is no online banking. Meaning you have to calculate how much you're spending, how much you're making. You're going to have to do that all by hand. You're going to have to write it down with your paper and pencil, and you're going to have to keep track of that yourself, and having a calculator is going to make that extremely easy. So make sure you have a calculator. Make sure you have a real alarm clock. Most people use their phone as an alarm clock. Make sure that you have a real alarm clock, because again, if your phone is off and you're not turning it on because you don't want to be hacked or cyber attacked, then you need to have an alarm clock. You need to have a way of waking up, because chances are you're still going to have to go to work. Even if there is no internet, there's still companies, there's still businesses, there's still things that are happening. You might have to go work at a local farm just for food. You know what I mean? Like there might be things that you can do in your neighborhood that can help people, and then they will reimburse you some way, and you need to be able to keep track of that stuff. And you need to be able to wake up on time and get to those places on time. The other thing that I want to write, okay, so when you're writing down all your information, you need to remember dates, so all the different dates, birthdays, anniversaries, everything that you rely your phone to remind you on, you need to write it down so that you can look it up yourself later. Phone numbers, again, so I don't know, the problem today is that everybody has cell phones. And if everybody turns their cell phone off, or if Verizon and AT&T turn your phones off, there really is no reason to have phone numbers, because no one's going to have a phone number. No one has landlines anymore. And so when it comes to phone numbers, it's just a good practice. When it comes to cyber attack, they might not be important, but when it comes to if you just choose yourself to disconnect from the internet, you're going to need those phone numbers so that you can call people. Your bank account number, and your routing numbers. You need to have all your bank information, because again, there were banks before internet, right? We had to write out physical checks. We had to pay with cash. The banks will probably still exist with no internet. We're just going to have to go back to the old way of doing things, and you're going to want to know how to access your bank account. You're going to want to know what your routing number is. You're going to want to know all these things so that when you go to your bank and say, hey, I need to take out some money, that you're taking the money out of your account, and they go, oh, you don't have an account here? Yes, I do. Here's the number. Here's the routing number. Here's all the information that you need to guarantee that that's my money, right? The other thing is keep track of how much is in your account. So once a month, write down how much is in your account. I keep an agenda book, and I write down how much is in all my accounts, so that if the internet goes out and I can't online bank, I know how much money I have. I know how much is in each account. I'm not going to overdraft by accident. I'm not going to be told there's no money in there. I have the information. I have a physical copy of the information. They're not going to tell me that there isn't when I know that there is, right? The other thing is, again, if there's no cell phone, you're going to want to still communicate. You're going to want to talk to people. So having a two-way radio, or if you have a license, a ham radio, the Baofeng radios are really good. I like those ones a lot, but you do need a license to use them. And just the Walmart two-way radios. I have a set of yellow two-way radios. They have pretty decent distance. And so if we're out in the neighborhood checking on people and doing things, Caroline and I can still communicate with each other. Even if we're not standing within yelling distance, we can still communicate. That's important to me. Next, you're going to want books, right? You're not going to have YouTube or Google to look things up. You're going to have to look them up in the books. You're going to have the books on hand so that if you have a question about plumbing or electrical or whatever it is, you can look it up and you can find that information. And so I have encyclopedias from 1997, which I really enjoy because they have all that knowledge in them. I have wilderness books. I have entertainment books. I have all sorts of different books. And if you do not have access to books, write notes, right? You have your paper and your pens and your pencils. While you're watching this video, take notes. While you're watching other videos on things that you feel are important, take notes. And just have a notebook or a clipboard. I use clipboards. Have a clipboard full of notes of things that you feel are really important. You don't have to buy the physical books. You can just take notes and have that. It can be your own personal book that you made yourself, full of all the notes that you learned from Google and internet. Or if you're borrowing books, take pictures of the pages. You know what I mean? You might not have your phone, but you can print those pictures out on the printer paper. I use printer paper. That's another thing. I can write on it. I can draw on it. I can put it in a printer. I like having printer paper on hand. But print it out. Take pictures, print the pictures out, have these things on hand. You don't have to have the physical book. If you just have key notes that you wrote down and a couple pictures of the most important pages, that should get you by. Next, you're going to want a physical calendar. You're going to want to be able to keep track of what day it is. You're going to want to keep track of what month it is. The thing is there's going to be people that are helpful everywhere. Okay, and if they say there's going to be a food drive next Tuesday, we need help, and anybody that helps gets free food, and we're going to be handing out food to the needy, and you want to be a part of that, and you want to indulge in that, either work at it or collect what they are offering, you're going to need to know when next Tuesday is. And you're going to need to set an alarm clock to make sure that you're getting there on time, right? So have a calendar, have an alarm clock, crank radio. So most of the information that we get is online. Okay, my TV, I have free TV, but it's on my Roku. My Roku uses the internet, meaning all of my TV is on the internet. YouTube is on the internet. So all the news, all the information that I collect goes through the internet. I also have a blue crank radio, and that radio is going to take the place of TV if I lose the internet. Because radio is always going to exist. It's air, right? As long as there's air, there's radio. And so I can tune in to local radio stations, and I can figure out when those food drives are. I can have that information. You know what I mean? If you don't have a radio and you're not communicating with the people around you, you don't have that information. Having a radio can be the difference between going to a food drive and working it and being able to feed your family, or sitting at home miserable, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to go, and just being in full panic mode. And so make sure that you have a radio. Make sure you have a way of getting information outside of the internet. The other thing is to print pictures. Now, what got me thinking about this is I have a ton of pictures on my phone, like a ton. And if I turned it off and I never planned on looking at it again, I would lose a lot of memories. And when you think of movies like Castaway or even like Con Air, he had that picture of his daughter, and he's like, I'll be getting that back. And it's just, those pictures help motivate you. They help you remember why you're doing what you're doing. It helps you remember why you're fighting the fight, while you're, when times are tough. Those pictures, like in Castaway, that picture of his wife, got him through a really long time, a really miserable time of his life, because he was just trying to get back home to his wife. And that picture and that constant reminder of her motivated him to just keep trying. And so pictures can be powerful, and so print some out, have them around, and don't take them for granted. A lot of people do, but they are important. Next, you're going to want food and fuel, right? Internet goes down, it's going to be straight chaos. Okay? Straight chaos. You're going to want a way to cook, you're going to want a way to eat, you're going to want a way to drink, you're going to want food, water, and shelter, right? You're going to want to be able to take care of everything yourself, at least until everybody calms down, right? There was a world before internet, and it wasn't even that long ago, right? There were people, my parents, when I was young, balanced checkbooks and lived in a world with zero internet, and they were just fine. You know what I mean? And they can teach us how they lived without internet. It's not like we gotta reinvent everything. It's like, oh, the internet's gone. All we have to do is look at people that are a little bit older than we are, and they can tell us exactly what they used to do, and we can just copy them. You know what I mean? Like our parents, our grandparents, they all lived through it. They know exactly how to live with no internet. It's not as scary as everybody makes it believe. Next is cards, board games, movies. Most of Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff's online. Facebook, Instagram, all online. A lot of the ways that people pass time, TikTok, watching TikTok, it's all online. Everything is online. One of the things that I did in last year, so 2021, is I turned off the internet and I went 24 hours with no internet. And it was very eye-opening because almost everything I do is online. I didn't have access to a lot of my movies or shows that I was watching. I didn't have access, all the things that like watching shows, like watching that 70s show. That was on Netflix. And so without Netflix, I couldn't watch TV, like I did before there was internet. I couldn't do it anymore. There was no G.I. Joes or He-Man or anything on. There was nothing. And so it really was eye-opening how much I relied on the internet. And so I have a lot of board games. When I go in, I go all in. I have over 200 board games. I really, really like board games. I've never been into video games. I'm not a video game kind of person, but I really like board games. The other thing is movies. I have a ton of movies. I have that 70s show. I have The Office. I have TV shows because, again, if there's no internet, you need to be able to pass that time. I have the Chappelle Show, and TV series are sometimes better than movies because you can just binge watch them, right? You can watch The Big Bang Theory from beginning to end for weeks. You know what I mean? If you gap them out, you can watch it for weeks, and it's entertaining for weeks at a time. Where a movie is kind of sit down for a couple hours, and then it's done, and then you're bored again. You know what I mean? So I try to get some TV shows in there as well. Next, you're going to want flashlights. Again, most people use their cell phone as a flashlight. Without a cell phone, there is no flashlights. So get dedicated flashlights. Maps. You're going to want real maps. Most people use GPS, again, on their phone. Or they Google how to get from here to there, and then they look it up on Google or Google Maps. You're going to want physical maps. Again, if you don't want to buy them, print them out. Google exists right now. You're watching YouTube right now, which means there's still internet, meaning you can print out maps from Google and have a physical copy. You don't have to go out and buy an atlas. You don't have to go out and buy a map. Just print out what's available to you right now so that when it's not available anymore, you have a physical copy. Next is envelopes and stamps. I suggest that these things are going to run out very quickly. Okay, so there's something that nobody thinks about anymore, but I remember I don't even remember. I think it was rent. I had to pay rent. I had to mail it because I didn't have, the place that I was at didn't have online banking or online anything. I was actually renting a room from a friend, and I would have to mail the check to their parents because it was their summer home. And so we would live there, and I would have to mail the check. And stamps and envelopes are how you pay for everything. It's how you pay your bills. It's how you do everything. If you're going to communicate to somebody across the state, you're not going to be able to text them or email them. You're going to have to write a letter, mail it in the mail, because the mail should still exist. It's always existed. It should still exist. Yes, it's going to take longer than it does now because there is no internet or computers, but you're still going to be able to talk to people long distances across the whole entire state, across the whole entire country. It's not going to be as quick as email or texting, but it's still possible if you have envelope and stamps. And they don't make as many as they used to. There used to be an abundance of envelopes and stamps, but people quit buying them, so they didn't really make that many. So if you can find them, you might want to stock up on them now, because like toilet paper in 2020, I feel like everybody's just going to hoard them so that they have them because the supply doesn't reach the demand. You know what I mean? The last thing is cash money. You want to have real cash money. With no internet, a lot of our credit cards, debit cards, all of our cards, our plastic money that we just swipe, it's not going to work. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to disappear. It's just not going to work that way. And so if you need gas, if you need food, if you need anything, having a supply of cash on hand, just a few $100s to get you by until the craziness goes away, it's going to help you significantly. It's going to make sure that, if you run out of beans and rice, that you can go and you have the cash money to buy beans and rice. If your gas tank is almost empty, you have that cash to fill it up and get through the next week or two, right? And so You don't need to store like $1 billion, but just having a couple $100s on hand so that you can get through the craziness is a really good idea. Even $1,000 cash can get you a long way if you're rationing it out. You also don't have access to Amazon, right? You don't have access to Amazon or online shopping, so we're not going to be spending as crazily as we do right now. Right now we go on Amazon and we find all this stuff that we need and we buy it. If there is no internet and there is no online shopping, the only access you have is to your local stores. If your local stores don't have it, you're not going to buy it. You know what I mean? And so you're going to save a bunch of money. You're probably only going to buy food and gas anyway. And so, yeah, $1,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but you're not going to be spending a lot either. And so that's why Caroline and I, we're not really worried about it. Because if we have to unhook from the internet, we're ready. We already have all these things. We're already prepared to handle a world without internet. And if for some reason the world gets so crazy, I might be the one that chooses to stop that box from making internet. And if that happens, it happens. And it's not something that we're scared of. It's something that we're prepared for. And so I hope by making this video, I can calm you guys down and get you guys thinking about things ahead of time so that if it does happen, if it were to happen, you're not scared, you're prepared. So if you think this is an important topic, if you think this is an important video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I cannot wait to see you on my next video.